Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Lauren Lester, to the show today. Lauren is a trailblazing solo attorney who's challenging the traditional law firm model. Fresh out of law school, she built a thriving practice that generates $250,000 and more annually while working part-time, proving that attorneys can succeed without sacrificing their well-being. Lauren's journey from new graduate to successful entrepreneur isn't just about profits. It's about transforming how legal services are delivered, making quality legal help more accessible, while helping attorneys work less, earn more, and serve better. I'm excited to have you here, Lauren. Welcome.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. Well, and let's start with your leadership journey. Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so like most attorneys, the day I found out that I had passed the bar exam was just pure elation. I had finally made it to the top of the mountain, it felt like. And then I got a swift kick in the head of reality because I had no idea how to actually run a business or a law firm. I had this license. I was told I was able to go out and practice law and serve clients, but how did I actually make money doing that? And so when I went to law school as a second career for me, I had always intended to have my own business. I really was sort of entrepreneur first, lawyer second, which is a little bit unusual in our profession. So I knew that I wanted to ultimately have my own practice. And as I was getting ready to graduate and pass the bar exam, I started asking other colleagues, like, how did you start your own business? And the common refrain was, well, I went to go work for someone else for a while, and then I opened up my own practice. And I would say, oh, great. Like, what are the things I should be looking for when I'm looking for an employer so that I can make that transition? And most of them said, well, I didn't actually learn how to run a business being an associate. I just got burned out being an associate and then was like, I'll figure this out. And coming into, the law as a second career, like time wasn't necessarily on my side. And I thought, I don't want to waste 3 more years doing something that really isn't going to get me on the path that I want to go on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to jump in the deep end right out of law school. I'm going to open up the practice and I'll figure it out. And so then I started again asking around because there's no manual, right? They don't teach us how to run a business in law school. So I asked around and I said, all right, folks who are running your own business, what are you doing? And I got a lot of the same answers again, right? It was high hourly rates, keep costs really opaque for clients, and litigate everything, right? Because that's how attorneys make their money. And I thought about that, but something just didn't feel right about it. Here I was, I have an advanced degree, able to earn a very good income, have a partner who does the same. Like, we are very fortunate. And I went and said, well, if I made a practice that way, I don't think I could be a client of my own business. Like, I think that I would be priced out. And so that just didn't feel good. And I thought, well, there's got to be a different way to do this. And I looked around. There weren't a lot of examples. So I just said, let's just jump in the deep end and figure out what works, because I wanted my neighbors who were also in good financial positions, right? Had good paying jobs, teachers and doctors and those folks to be able to afford legal services. And so I thought, well, what if I try like a flat fee model where folks will know what the cost is going to be up front? And that really started me on the journey of really kind of questioning the traditional approach. And there's very good things about the traditional approach. It's obviously worked for a lot of folks for a lot of time. But I really wanted to focus on my clients and say, but is that really the best for them? Or is that just the best for us as attorneys? and really questioning kind of constantly that status quo to say, is this really how we have to do it? Or could there be a different and maybe even better way to approach the practice of law?
Very good. That I agree. And the flat fee model is coming back into a thought process now with a lot of people using AI and that sort of thing to help reduce the hours that they're able to serve more people. So, it's making it definitely that's an option now. Now, did you go into, and assuming so, I assume from reading your backstory that you had to come from an entrepreneurial family or some influence on you that you wanted to do that. Are you looking to do like a lifestyle type firm as opposed to, some people start a firm and they want to be, the biggest in the 3 or 4 names on the building kind of firm?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely more of a firm that would support my life and not having a life that supported a business. And I actually don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I come from, my mom was in education and my dad was in sales for a long time, kind of, working as an employee. And so I'm not sure where that bug came from. I think I just really like the idea, having been an employee, not in the legal space. Although I have heard, tales and tales of folks who are an associate, I think it's very similar. Being an employee, you really lose that freedom and autonomy sometimes, and being able to be creative or wanting to do something different, you're kind of stuck in that system. And so I think that's where it came from for me, was I wanted the freedom to be able to write my own rules. But really it came down to, I wanted a practice that would support my life. At the time when I started 10 years ago, I didn't have kids yet, but I knew that that was probably on the horizon for me. And so I wanted to be, a parent who was going to show up, who was at all the events, who was making my kids breakfast in the morning. And I had just heard again from colleagues who were in either associate positions or running a more traditional practice that it was really hard to have the two. Like if you wanted to be successful, you were working 90 hours a week and, you never saw your kids, and that was just part of the sacrifice. And it just wasn't one I was willing to make. So I was trying to figure out how do I marry the two where I can have this business that I'm really passionate about that serves folks, but also have a life at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to, as they say, you can have it all. You just have to decide what you want, and put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Because, do we want it all, or we want all that we want? So, yeah. So tell us what did you do? How did you structure your day in your firm that you're doing flat rate, obviously? Are you doing local marketing? What are you doing to get new clients in your area?
So I relied on the history that I had, which I was, before a lawyer, I was in the web development space. So when I first started out, I thought, okay, I know this, I can put up a website, I understand SEO. So that's really where I've started. And that has always been my foundation, is thinking, where are clients going to get the answers to the problems that they have, right? And a lot of times folks don't understand they truly have a legal issue, or they're just asking Google, right? How do I modify my child support? Or how do I set up a business? And so they're going to look for resources. And I thought, okay, if I can put myself in the position where they might find me and some free information I find that I provide online, then maybe that's going to have them pick up the phone and say, hey, can you help me out here? So I leaned into that. And then over the last few years, especially with the rise in the prominence of video, I really started to lean into providing video that gives basic information that kind of answers those questions that we as attorneys have answered 1,000 times. And it's really mostly information. Like sometimes folks after the first few questions will then start asking, well, what about in my case? So I don't answer those obviously online, but it was just simple questions about, how does the court decide this? Or what do I do if I get this letter in the mail? What is it even telling me? I don't understand these words. So really I kind of Googled like top questions in my practice areas that folks would have. And then I created a video answering them. So I've gotten a lot of business where folks find it kind of funny from TikTok of all places, because the algorithm there is going to serve up not necessarily folks you follow. So, because if somebody follows me, right, they already know about my business. So there's a different marketing there. It's to get in front of new faces who maybe don't know that I exist. So being able to put it up on there, and now with YouTube Shorts as well, and just answering questions. So really always focused my marketing on how can I provide information to get folks across that initial hump of just understanding what it is they're facing, what maybe some of their options are. so that they understood the what, and then they would come to me to say, well, how do I do this? Or how do I protect my family? And can you help me do that?
I love that. You're doing exactly what we've been trying. You're in marketing, you've been in marketing. Well, we've been trying to get clients to do forever. You know that. Have you seen the website Answer the Public?
Yes, I feel like years ago, but I haven't been on it since.
It is still there, right? So you can buy keyword, just type in a keyword and tell all these questions that are going on the search engines. It's a great thing to do. But by doing these little snippets of information, not opinions, not something you have to be worried about, but information, you get that know, like, and trust factor. And people, now you're approachable because, many people feel like attorneys are unapproachable. And I think you've done exactly the perfect thing to get people to know you.
Yeah, there's a lot of intimidation. As you can imagine, right? If I was going to a doctor or even a contractor who builds houses, that is not in my sphere. I have no idea. And so there's a little bit of an intimidation factor for clients to say, I don't understand what, a 2x4 is. How is a house framed? And so being able to go to somebody who has that knowledge, but not feel belittled or like you're stupid, and really have someone go, oh no, that's actually, a really complex issue, especially in the law, right? Nothing is straightforward. And to break it down in a way that makes sense to them, I think folks really appreciate that. And I can't tell you the number of people I have had a consultation with who talk to me like they have known me for 20 years. Like, because they're like, oh, I watched a bunch of your videos and I feel like I already know you. I mean, they're sold from a business standpoint before I talk to them. So that's always the best position to be in, because it's really just
Isn't
a
it?
conversation, right? I don't feel like I have to be salesy or push anything, but it's because of those videos, because you can have that personal connection even when you're not in front of someone.
Wow, that is absolutely true. I love that. So let's talk about how simple those are. Are you doing them in your car? I haven't checked out your videos, I have to say. I know that a lot of people do them in the car. And one of the things I got asked by it was, why in your car? And it's because the acoustics are great,
The acoustics
right?
are great. Yes, I have definitely done ones in the car. Honestly, I do them at my desk here, and I prop my phone up on a pile of books, or if I have my tripod handy, and just hit record. And I'll have ahead of time, like I said, I go and look up, what's the 10 questions that I want to answer today? And I'll sit there for a few minutes and kind of think through, okay, how do I want to answer? What's the difference between a will and a trust, which is a common question in estate planning. So I'll kind of think through, but I don't want to have a script or something I'm reading, because I think that feels very stilted and that comes across very quickly in a video. So I'll think through, okay, what are the 3 main points I want to have in my video with a will and a trust? Well, I want to explain the timing of them. I want to explain maybe the contingency planning and maybe the additional management that a trust might require versus a will. Okay, so I've got those 3 in my head. So then I just click record and answer the question as if a client was sitting in front of me saying, what's the difference between a will and a trust? And I'll go through and answer those questions. I always start with the question. I don't start with, hi, I'm Lauren, I'm an attorney in Colorado, and I do this thing, because I feel like you've got 3 seconds to grab someone and they're like, next video, boring, right?
Yeah.
So I'll
Yep.
start with, why would you choose a will versus a trust to protect your family? And then go into those 3 things. Here are some of the considerations. And then at the end will be, I'm an attorney. If you have any more questions, leave a comment. Here's my contact information if you want to schedule a consultation. And try and leave the videos maybe 30 to 60 seconds, maybe sometimes 90 seconds. So quick videos, and then go on to the next one. So I don't try as I'm recording to edit myself or edit in the moment. I just go to the next one. And if I really mess up and kind of need to take a break and start over, I'll go back and edit later, so that I kind of cut out those mistakes or where my brain just stops working and I totally lose my train of thought. But it's really just getting into the habit of creating a bunch of them. So creating 10 at once, editing them, and then scheduling them for posting, and then seeing, what happens, what feedback do I get, what videos have the most comments, and then leaning into more of that content, because obviously that's your market telling you, hey, we want more here, help us out.
I love that. So you're batching content, which is another thing that we suggest. It makes it so much easier. And being prepared ahead of time. I love that you're not doing a teleprompter or a script or something like that. Teleprompters can be good, but I have not found a good one that doesn't make it look like I'm reading something.
Yeah, especially on the phone in that kind of small space. Yeah, I too. Yeah, I've tried a few times and I'm like, you can obviously tell I'm reading this, and it just doesn't feel as personal.
But answering the questions are perfect. We've used that, especially in estate planning, as reels and ads on Meta platforms. And those work great because you're literally answering questions that your people have, your potential new clients have. So it works out really, really well. And we're trying to get other practice area attorneys to do the same thing because, I mean, they look real and we don't do anything but captions. And then at the very end, the phone number. There's no logo, there's no nothing on them. They look like reels and they work really well for ads. So, and you're building your YouTube channel. So you're doing YouTube. So you're using the same videos on your YouTube channel that you are on TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. And just being able to have another channel, being the second largest search engine, as I'm sure you know, right, as YouTube is, like that's where folks are going to find these answers. So why would I not put myself in a position where I would pop up and say, hey, you had that question about, is a will good for your family? Let me tell you something and let me break it down where it makes sense to you. And that's going to build that know, like, and trust factor. So yeah, YouTube has been really great, especially as I've built up that catalog, that it has paid dividends down the road. I'll have folks say, oh, I found you on YouTube. And when I ask them, oh, what were you searching for? What was the video? I mean, it's videos I may have posted years ago. And assuming the law hasn't changed, which for the most part, it doesn't change that fast, right? This is stuff that is continuing to give me an ROI for something that, took me 10 minutes 3 years ago to post.
And that's excellent because it's like on YouTube, not YouTube, sorry, on TikTok, the FYP, so the For You page, you get given videos that could be months old. It doesn't mean they're just yesterday, right, or today. So that content that you made 3 years ago could very well pop up and you don't, or just you didn't know it, but all of a sudden now you've got someone calling you out of that content. So that's fantastic. How often are you posting?
So I try to do at least 3 times a week. Truth be told, in the last few months, I have not been posting as much video content, and which is how I know that it still works and I still get calls about it. But when I was doing it consistently, I would try and post 3 times a week and then go in and either answer comments that were pretty straightforward or go through and be able to pull out comments that were then additional videos. So one of the things I do love about TikTok that makes it a little bit more personal is that you can respond to a comment through video. And so folks would always like that, that they see I'm answering questions from their peers. And then certainly the person who had asked the question, always making sure, right, I'm not giving legal advice. It's usually questions they're always questions I select to make sure that they're appropriate. But that was always kind of the other bit of time that I would spend is just the engagement part, not just the posting.
Great. And you're using the insights on the platform to see which one's most popular?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. What questions it is, what topics sometimes. Would get a lot of comments, on more hot button topics. Like when I did family law, I would post about how child support is calculated and how it works, what the law looks at. And of course, that always got folks, riled up. And I think child support's great. I hate it. So-and-so's not paying me. But so I would go, okay, there's something here, right? Folks have questions and have issues about child support. So how do I not dive into like the cesspool of it, but pull out the nuggets to be able to say, they want to learn more or they want to dive in a little bit more about how income is determined. So really kind of getting granular, but identifying, where are those spikes where folks are definitely connecting with the content more.
Okay, awesome. So now let's talk about how you've taken that and that you've grown to your lifestyle business and without burnout, you've got a good balance, you've got your children and you're still making profit. So we're happy and you're making over $250,000 a year. How would you help, do you help people organize their life to do the same thing?
Yeah, I do. So this really started organically out of coffees. I would just go to coffees with colleagues and kind of just talk about, business is great. And I'm going to my kid's recital. I went for a run this morning and they would always look at me deer in the headlights. Like, I don't understand. Like, are you from a different planet? Like we're both lawyers.
You have a
right?
life, right?
Something is not computing. And they would inevitably ask, but like, how are you doing that? Like, I don't understand. And so we'd always dive into some sort of like, whether it's marketing or they want to learn about tech or automations or whatever it is. And so I thought, well, maybe something I'm doing here could help others. Like it certainly has worked for me. I've created some systems. So maybe I'll put it out and just give folks information. So it started as a blog. I created this blog called A Different Practice and just kind of wrote down, here's what I did this week, or here's this email that worked really well with clients, or here's how I come up with video content that I want to post. And I started sharing it, and now it's grown into this community of predominantly solos who are wearing all the hats for all the things and trying to figure it out and not be burnt out and love this practice that they have and kind of get back to the joy of lawyering, which I think we all got into the profession, and then you get into the machine and it sort of crushes your soul, unfortunately. So how do we kind of get that back? And now, yeah, we have this great community. I put out a newsletter every week of just, here's what I've been trying out. Here's what did not work. Here's what has worked. Here's how you can implement it. So anyone can join. The newsletter is free. You can join at adifferentpractice.com/subscribe. And then there's a community on Substack as well. So if you have questions, I've coached individual attorneys in their own practice and just kind of helped, folks go, yeah, that sounds really great, but like, how do I do it? Like, but my practice, always has this like specific
Mine's
thing.
different.
Yes. Like, I hear ya. So let's talk about how it works for you. So yeah, if anybody wants that additional level of kind of one-on-one, or at least being able to ask questions specific to their practice, joining on Substack. There are some membership levels that you can join that are really affordable, and you can get that information so you can start to shift your practice from one that's maybe soul crushing to life-giving.
Nice. I love that. And you're quite popular. You've got nearly 1,000 subscribers.
I do. Yeah, it's slowly grown. I think word has gotten out and folks have gotten a lot of value out of it. That's always where I'm coming from is, hey, how can I give you a little nugget that just makes this aspect of the practice just a little better, a little bit easier for you? So yeah, word has definitely spread, and we've got almost 1,000 folks at this point. So come on in, join us. The water is definitely warm.
Well, that's fantastic. And you've started doing Substack. So that's gotten really popular lately. I'm sure, a lot of the personal news people and stuff. And it's actually, I'm looking at adding that as a platform just for SEO. Is that something that you started it with, is for the SEO, and then it became a membership platform as well?
No, so I just started with like a basic blog on WordPress years and years ago, and then did my newsletter through MailChimp for a long time. And then really only in the last couple of months have added Substack. And like you kind of heard a lot about it. There were a lot of positive feedback. I had gotten and have been burnt out on the traditional social media. Certainly for my clients, I still think that's where they are at. But even platforms like LinkedIn just felt a lot of like personal boosting and here's what I've done and, a lot of self-promotion, which I totally get and is part of the practice. But I thought, I want to like help folks, and it seemed to get lost in all of that noise. And so I had a colleague who said, oh yeah, I'm over on Substack, and checked it out. And it was just a much more creative space, and a space where folks are really thinking like, there's a lot of more thought leadership, I guess. Like, what are things that we're thinking of? And it's all different areas. It's not just certainly the law. I think probably
it runs the gamut.
Yes. Us lawyers are probably a very small community on there, but yes, it's so great of being able to have a safe space where you can say, I'm thinking about this that maybe you would never say at a mixer or with another, more traditional, a colleague who's in a more traditional practice, and being able to bounce ideas off of and get some creative solutions. And so, yeah, then I thought, oh, well, they've got these memberships, and how can I continue to serve folks and serve other solos and give them access to what they want, which is help me, I've got this question. Can you point me in the right direction?
And I love that. And I love that you're adding another platform you're not adding multiple, you're slowly adding platforms. The other one I was thinking about is we publish articles on Medium as well. And that used to be back in the day something really important, but it's still quite popular, and it's great for SEO. The other thing is we're doing a newsletter on LinkedIn, and those are inboxed, right? You don't get their name, but doing a newsletter on LinkedIn is a way of getting out there. If you have a B2B type thing, obviously B2C is not going to work as well, but that's for anybody that's listening that's looking to do something B2B. That's a very good way of getting the information out there. And the advantage is LinkedIn will suggest your newsletter to people. And so our newsletter grew phenomenally in just the course of a couple of months to like 2,000 people. And we don't have those names and addresses, but you keep putting valuable content in, they will reach out and you will get that traffic.
Yeah, I have had phenomenal success. Newsletter is my number one, both for my clients, although I don't do it as well, but certainly for this business, working a little bit more in that B2B space with fellow attorneys. The newsletter has been phenomenal. I would recommend that to anyone. So great to hear that LinkedIn layers on that interest algorithm, which is why I think TikTok became as huge as it was and such a business booster as it was because it served up content that you didn't necessarily know about, where the other platforms, you had to follow someone. So you had to know about them to get there. And now you can see Meta starting to do the interest algorithm,
Yeah.
and we get all that now on our platforms. But TikTok was really the first to start that. And so LinkedIn layering that on with that in that B2B space is so great to know that, your newsletter could get out to folks who maybe don't know about you, but could really find value in what you're offering.
And two, the LinkedIn app now has the new video feed in it, and it's being more like a Reels type thing. So they've redone the app where on the website if you publish your newsletter, it still goes to people's email. So it's another way of getting there. But I love what you've done on the TikTok and the Substack. Any advice you would give someone that's listening that's going, I want to love my job again?
Yes.
And love my business.
Yes, it absolutely is possible. It certainly takes a little bit of a mindset shift to just be able to kind of jump anyway. You don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to even know what the next right step is, but really getting in community with folks who are a little bit further down the path who can help support you and build the practice for you. I think the law has become a little cookie cutter in terms of a traditional practice. This is how we do it. Everybody fits in this box. You have to do it this exact way. And just being able to say, you know what? No, I don't. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently and build a practice that actually works for me. I called it a different practice because mine was not only different from the traditional model, but I wanted mine and all of my colleagues to have slightly different practices because we were building something that works for us. So knowing that is absolutely possible, and there's a community out there waiting to welcome you and help support you in that journey.
I love that. I love that. So one final question. If I could wave a wand and fix any problem in your firm, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say honestly, I would say it's a mindset thing for me right now. And it's a personal thing that I actually had coffee with a colleague a couple weeks ago who has also been in business for 10 years. And they have built a multi-million-dollar, multi-state, 50+ employee practice. And even though I love my practice and wouldn't change it for the world, it's that constant noise of, well, am I doing enough? Am I not successful? Because I'm not on the billboards, right? Like they've got billboards around town. Like I drive around like, oh, there they are. So I think for me, if I could wave a magic wand, being able to be all the time totally confident in, no, I'm building it for my definition of success, because the noise can be so loud sometimes, even after a decade, even after I know I wouldn't change it. That I think would be most helpful to remove that sort of comparison and just head down, do your own thing. As long as it works for you, that's what matters.
Well, the interesting thing is I think we all do that. I mean, seriously, it's like, and social media is like, I think makes it worse because we get to see everybody's and you forget you're looking at their highlight reel.
Yep.
You're not looking at their every day, right? It's a highlight reel, and we compare ourselves to their highlight reel. And we have a highlight reel too. It's just different. And, but no, I understand that mindset thing. But no, I love what you're doing. I love that you have the newsletter that can help other solos do exactly the same thing and build that practice that's a lifestyle practice and gives you time to have a run in the morning and lunch with friends. So I appreciate you being here. How could any of our listeners reach out and connect with you?
Yeah.
What would be the best way to do that?
Join through the newsletter. So differentpractice.com/subscribe. That will lead you to Substack. So if you want the free newsletter or you want to do any of the subscriptions, you can absolutely do that. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. If anyone is on that platform, you can always reach out, send a message. I'm always happy to answer any quick questions. And you just search for my name, Lauren Lester, in Colorado. I should pop up pretty easily there.
Fantastic. Lauren, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was a joy.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.